Good morning and welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and this morning we're visiting with Greg Drake. He's the Butler County Extension Agent for Agriculture and Natural Resources. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Joanna. It's good to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here because we're going to talk about an important topic. It's an important topic for almost every farm family. At some point in time, a good farm transition is going to be essential for passing the farm or the business to the next generation.
Absolutely. And one thing that's for certain, we may not have a great crop this year. We may have the best crop we've ever had. But at some point in all of our lives, all of these farm operations are going to need to transition from one generation to the other, or they're going to need to cease because we're not going to live forever. And it is an uncomfortable topic, but it is a topic that all families need to talk about in some form. And I'm an advocate for getting the process started early, lots of communication, and having a successful transition, because most farm families want to see that farm perpetuate from the next generation, or maybe it's from a generation to their grandkids. But it does take some work to make that happen smoothly.
I think I read somewhere, Greg, that it's one of the operations that highly values passing it to the next generation, but one of the occupations that does it the most poorly. And I think one of the reasons is because it is a hard conversation to have. But starting that communication early and having an honest communication, and sometimes that's hard with family, but maybe get a mediator, but talking about it's the most important.
Absolutely, and communication. For example, my family, I have one sister. My parents were full-time farmers. Our family has been on the small farm in southern Butler County for 200 years. It's very important to my parents that that stays a farm and continues a farm. And we have a hard time having those conversations when all of us want to. And the biggest challenge is when you have one family member that doesn't want to. So sometimes families do need to consider finding somebody that's an outside party that everybody trusts and start the talk. And there's a lot of resources out there to help. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but it is something that is so important, not just financially, but for family unity. And the saddest thing that I think I see, and you probably seen it too here in your work, is when families are torn apart by this. We all know it's coming, but we don't like to think about it.
Absolutely. So communication is the place we get started, but there are some documents that we need to gather, some information that we need to gather, and a lot of times we think of this passing it on to the next generation, but Greg, unfortunately accidents happen, things happen, and sometimes a spouse might die and the other spouse is left not knowing some of those essential things to make that farm operate.
That's exactly right, and it gets back to communication and everybody knowing what's going on, everybody knowing where things are. And, I'm here in Bowling Green today. I may not make it home. People die in car wrecks every day. It's a sad reality. So I'd certainly want Shanna to be aware of where all our important papers are. And we need to have that talk. And you never get too old to have that talk. I still feel like I'm a pretty young guy. But as I close in on 50 years old, I start thinking, you're not going to live forever, Greg.
Yes, and we never know what that day is, so it's never too early to start that conversation. But once we get that conversation started, we have some of our documents. It probably is advantageous at some point in time to get some legal advice as well.
Absolutely. We've got an excellent publication on estate planning that the University of Kentucky has that can help guide families through this. And one of the things that it brings out is you need a team to do a nice job with estate planning. You're going to need some legal advice. You're going to need people to help you draw up the correct papers. And you're going to maybe need an accountant and some tax advice. The importance of starting early and getting all this information together when you start meeting with these professionals saves time, saves money, and preserves those resources for the folks that the provider wants to pass down to the next generation. But it's tough.
Absolutely. And sometimes that patriarch or matriarch, sometimes the hardest one to sit down and talk about this situation. But it is so important, and we appreciate you bringing the information to us today. And if you have questions, there are resources available that the university has, so you can contact your local extension office, and we'd be happy to help. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.